So my name is Cirilo. I am a DevOps engineer at Philip Morris International. I joined PMI, I think, almost a year and a half ago, close to it. And I'm currently working in the local IT hub, more precisely the deep team. And I bring some of my work to present here over the last year. I would like to start by showing you guys this picture. This is a picture of the PMI's data center in Switzerland. It's not a stock photo on the internet. It's our actual data center. You can see the server racks, power supplies, maybe even some refrigeration over there. This beautiful white floor, everything very clean. I also have another picture. I think this is from the ventilation room. We can see here what I think could be some ventilators or maybe even compressors. I don't know. I've never personally been there, unfortunately. I would like to see this for myself. It is quite amazing, all this infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and yeah, and somehow it's kind of makes you wonder, why are we shutting it down or closing it down? If you don't know PMI, maybe you do know Marlboro. This is a cigarette brand. It's the flagship cigarette brand for PMI, I would say. We are also responsible for other tobacco brands. We manufacture them. We have over 30 factories worldwide, around 70,000 employees. More recently, we are in the market with IQOS and HEETS, which are PMI products. Besides Marlboro, we also manufacture L&M, Chesterfield, and, well, Philip Morris. I think it's also a cigarette brand. So you can see that I took this from Wikipedia, so I don't take this very accurately. $76 billion USD dollars in revenue in 2020. You can see we are not a startup, so definitely not a startup, but you will see. Besides the financials, the factories, the employees, also mentioned we have a data center in Switzerland, but as you could guess, supporting many other offices and factories. In total, we have over 100 computer rooms worldwide, and data center computer rooms. We're hosting over 2,000 applications, or at least we were hosting over 2,000 applications in 2020 on-prem. If you're wondering, how can any company, even the size of PMI, be needing over 2,000 applications? This is something that I wonder. What are those 2,000 applications? Well, one thing you can do is think about how we are market segregated. So imagine a simple inventory system that you use to manage inventory in, let's say, Brazil, and you also want to deploy that same system in Chile. So those would count for two applications here, or maybe even more. And not only that, we're talking about a lot of vendor applications, so not applications that we are actively developing. And I believe a lot of people here are working in product teams, working with the front-end, back-end developers, DevOps teams, and well, my point here is that we don't have 2,000 teams working on applications. So we have a lot of applications hosted on-prem, but not necessarily a very large scale of teams developing applications. In Portugal, we have a factory in Sintra. It's been there for around 60 years, if I'm not mistaken, and it was bought by Philip Morris around a little over 20 years ago. Right now, and since 2020, so almost 2 years ago, Tabaqueira launched the local IT hub, which has 84 employees at the moment. So today's count, I checked with HR. And we're looking to hire a further 60. So yeah, Eduardo, we are also hiring. There is essentially 2 teams here at the local IT hub, or 2 branches. One of them, mainly not all of us are migrating those 2,000 applications to the cloud. Actually, most of us are not. So there's essentially 2 teams inside this IT hub, 2 branches of teams. One of them is Deep, which is my team. And I think here in Portugal, we are 15 employees in Deep, more or less. And we're not all in Portugal, we're also in Poland, at least we have this base in Portugal and in Poland, and we have Deep, my team, my branch of teams has around 45 employees working, including from Buenos Aires to Ukraine, actually. And so that is Deep. And there is also a bigger part of the IT hub here in Portugal is not actually working Deep and not actually working on this cloud migration project directly. Indirectly, I don't know if they are. So what is the motivation of Philip Morris to leave behind such a beautiful data center and computer rooms and trying to move applications to the cloud? Is it cost? Well, I don't know if it's cheaper, probably not. I don't know. It wasn't my decision, but if it was my decision, I would tell you my reasons to do it. First of all, what do you have on-prem? Well, you have dedicated hardware. You have managed network. You have managed backups, managed VMs. It's what you have is actually very specific. You're working mostly with VMs on-prem, and these days, I don't think if you want to be leading and being competitive in the IT space, you can be limited by that. It's nowadays, if you want to store large files, a storage API like S3 is just mandatory. Lambda, RDS, database management systems. I think if you want to, I've never worked a lot on-prem or at all, but if you want to launch a DB instance on-prem, you need to install it on a VM or an hardware machine. And imagine actually maintaining it. You upgrading, it will be up to you to maintain those configuration files. Imagine making it high availability. In the data center, you only have one geographical location. It's not like you have availability zones. Worse, imagine clustering your database, configuring masters, slaves, hot standbys, replication, doing all of that on-prem. Now that it's a lot of overhead, especially when you compare it to a managed service from the cloud like RDS. So for me personally, the question is not why you should move from on-prem to AWS, even if your on-prem infrastructure is incredible, but it's how do you move it? And that's what I'm getting into. How do you move 2,000 applications from on-prem to AWS cloud? One way you could do it, imagine, this is not what I'm doing, but imagine that you just create one AWS organization and you advertise it to all the teams that are hosting applications on-prem, and you go, hey, we have this AWS organization now. If you want to join the clouds, let me know. We'll set you up an account and you can have it, and we will have fun with it. Be cloud first, be native, use the latest RDS, use the latest Kubernetes, use the latest S3, have fun with it. And as far as I know, that's probably the best option when you have to migrate maybe one app or 2 apps. It works pretty well. Imagine, look at this road crossing. it's pretty confusing, but if there was just one car, two cars, three cars, this would work very well. You wouldn't need traffic lights. You wouldn't need sensors on the crosswalks. Just let them go, and they will go. But if you imagine 2000 instead, it will be worse than this image, because there are so many different directions. The diversity of apps is so big. It will be a huge mess to maintain. And so this is something we're trying to avoid. And another thing, see that you have 2000 applications being migrated individually by teams to AWS. You just provide them with an AWS account or a set of them. They will be duplicating so much work, because every single one of them will need to set up VPC connectivity or IAM federation to work with the corporate AD. And all of them, or a lot of them, will be replicating third-party integrations. They will be all fighting for the same security and compliance measures. There will be so much duplicated work between accounts. And this is where the opportunity is, to build actually a framework that will allow many teams to move to the cloud without duplicating all this work. And this is where Deep comes in. This is my team. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to do this framework that will allow, that is allowing teams from going to on-prem infrastructure to the cloud infrastructure. Deep stands for Delivery Enterprise Engineering Platform. I don't really like all the letters, but I like Deep. Deep sounds good. And Deep is actually an extension. It's an extension to the previous model, where you just let them go, just create accounts, but with a self-service portal in front, and with a lot of platforming engineering team. Well, with three engineering teams behind it, providing a lot of coded standards. And this self-service model works in a way that, first of all, you go to our Deep portal, where you will be able to request a product. So this self-service portal is implementing a product model. We're not here selling or giving away AWS accounts. We are giving you Deep products. And we use the Deep product lifecycle managed by the portal to actually create AWS accounts. And once you decide on what product you want to use, you request the product, and during provisioning, we will create AWS accounts. You can move one application there, you can move three, you can move two, you can select a few accompanying services. If you want your applications to have a Vault namespace, you select it in the portal. I'm going to show you the interface then. If you want some CI/CD, some collaboration tools, Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, we will provision that and connect it to the AWS accounts. And this connection is key, because this is where a lot of duplicated work will end up. And I will show you later with an example. So Deep is not just delivering a framework for AWS accounts, delivering a framework for entire DevOps workflows from varied number of teams, different regions, and providing a lot of services as best as we can. I got a small comment here. I didn't know where else to put it, but I should mention this about migrating those 2000 applications to the cloud. Our plan of migration is not to refactor the applications. So as far as I understand, you can do it in, you can go for 3 levels of commitments for cloud migration. You can refactor your application to cloud native infrastructure. This is not something that we were trying to do even from the beginning, because we're talking about big volume of applications. We were targeting about 50% between replatforming and rehosting, which is just essentially taking the application from on-prem, putting it on an EC2 instance, something like that, and try and have it running as fast as possible. And yeah, that was the goal. And is the goal. And we are almost there, actually. Next slide, I'm showing you the actual portal interface, more specifically the new product form. This is where you go to request a new product. You have a workload on a server room, you want to migrate to the cloud. Come here, choose your product codes, give it a description, a few more details that every corporation needs, and select which services do you want for your product. Do you want integration with MuleSoft? Do you want an Elastic, what is the name they use? Space for your logs? Do you want controller in Jenkins? Do you want Docker repository in Artifactory? You can customize a bit how your product will be provisioned here. And if you select a service like AWS, which is pretty important, also, it means that you can create a project without AWS as well. Deep works for that. I think if you can just create a project in Confluence using Deep, I could be wrong. If you do select AWS, we will ask you a few more questions that allow you to customize your AWS accounts. This is also where a lot of synergies will start to appear. When you select your VPC model, you can see here in this drop-down list, you can select between greenfield, lands, hybrid, and there is an idea between these three VPC models. It's connectivity with on-prem. So if your product is a lift and ship product, you're migrating it from on-prem to AWS account, you require connectivity to on-prem private network to function, then you just come here, select lands VPC model. The VPC will be created with the correct transit gateway attachments, the routing on the route tables will direct to the transit gateway, and you will have connectivity to on-prem. On the other hand, if your app requires connectivity to the internet, but not connectivity to on-prem, then you can choose a greenfield VPC type. And in the middle, a compromise here. If you need both kinds of connectivity, you can go for an hybrid VPC model, but it doesn't work. It's not a pure hybrid. Then if you want access to on-prem's network, you need to request firewall rules for them. This is the kind of customization. Imagine that we don't provide this service and you have to create your own networking. It will be quite difficult, and it will be a lot of, if every account, every product has to do this by themselves, you're looking at a somewhat complex network model. We operate direct connects between our on-premise network and AWS network, transit gateways, well, at least one per region. We operate gateway load balancer on top on the network account, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not a network expert. We use Palo Alto and Panorama to manage firewall rules. This deployment is all, it's be highly available. It's an interesting setup. If you're a network geek, we have some work here. You can also customize.
Cirilo,
yeah.
Not to hush, but you do have not too much time.
How much time do I have left?
Couple of minutes.
Couple of minutes. Okay. This is the portal, self-service portal. Once you create a product, you will see your products. You might see multiple of them. You can click a product. You will see the provisioning status of your services. Here, all of them are green. Once you create the product, once it starts being provisioned, I'm not sure, it could take about an hour to provision the services that you have. Not everything is automatic here. So the provisioning process itself is manual so far. Going back, if after you create your services, if you want to change, we don't yet support changing these settings. You'll have to request it to do it manually. If we had everything, we wouldn't be hiring so much, I think. One of these services that we provision is Terraform. Very important key concept here. We deploy 2 Terraform workspaces for each, Terraform enterprise workspaces for each AWS account. We deploy the baseline, and this is the key concept. We separate between baseline and resources when we provision your AWS account. Things like the VPC, upstream, DNS hosted zones, backup plans, transit gateway attachments, security config rules, they will be deployed. Everything that's managed by the platform will be deployed on the baseline IAM roles. And from the customer side, they have permissions for managing the resources workspace, and this is how we do separation of responsibilities on AWS accounts. One example of these synergies that we're trying to create, it's just an example. Ansible AWX, imagine you create a product that requires AWS and Ansible. One of the things you need to do is set up a connection between Ansible and AWS. But if you're using Deep, when you land on Ansible, you will have created for your accounts organizations with access set up, with inventory set up. This is connected with one role that was created on the application baseline by the Terraform Enterprise workspace. The role is here configured, and you can just see that once you start launching EC2 instances on your new AWS accounts, now you're already seeing them as hosts on your Ansible AWX dashboard. And this is something that it's work that we take away from customers that would need to do it. And this is an example of what we're trying to do every time we Deep. We're trying to take away repetitive work from customers and just go and work on AWS and TFE. We have the same for CI/CD Jenkins. You don't have to set up roles and trust relationships. Baseline will take care of that. Service accounts, API, AVM will take care of that. We are working to make it work as best as we can. Another example, Deep Infra team, they provide the EKS cluster. What are one of the things that you need to do after you launch an EKS cluster in AWS? Well, almost for certain, you will have to update your AWS auth map config, because if you're using roles, there will be missing map entries. Also, if you use this module, we will set encryption settings for you. This is actually imprecise. We don't do SMK for EKS cluster. Sorry about that. This is misleading. And this will help you be compliant on the platform. So yeah, I think this kind of brings forward the idea of Deep, creating this platform that will allow teams to work with AWS and modern DevOps tools as easy as possible without repeating work. This would be a big waste. Currently, how are we doing? We have over 400 products in Deep. Of the initial 2,000 apps, 279 had been consolidated, meaning they've been merged. 2 or 3 apps can be turned into one product, and a lot of other apps have been marked as decommissionable and were already decommissioned. I think the plan is to decommission further to 200 apps. And final slide. Final slide, lessons learned. This is the one I prepared the least, so I'm improvising the most. What have we learned throughout these last 2 years with Deep? What could we have done differently? Well, I think we kind of underestimated a bit the knowledge of cloud platforms from the teams that were doing on-prem before, because it can be quite a shock to be imposed a migration like this. We also experienced some collisions in ways of working. So Deep works with other teams. We don't work alone. This is not Ocean's 11. We work with other teams, and not every other team works like we do. We do sprint, we do agile. We have quarter meetings to reflect on what we're doing and what are our goals, and to reorganize our priorities. But other teams don't work in the same way, and we depend a lot on them. And so we had quite a lot of difficulties here. Recently, also with documentation, we mixed a lot of internal documentation with external documentation. This makes it harder for us for everyone to separate between, well, to find what you're looking for if you're a client and if you're a maintainer of the platform, because everything is in the same place. Not the best thing. I also talked with a colleague from the migration team today, and she mentioned that maybe one of the things they would have done differently is going for rehosting more hubs. So just taking them from on-prem and putting them without any change, if possible, on AWS, and only then do some replatforming. I think if it was today, we would probably be doing more rehosting and less replatforming, because the sheer volume creates big number of unknowns. It is difficult. On the other hand, I don't know if you noticed, but we launched the platform, and I've been talking about the IT Hub. I think it was officially launched in March 2020. I only joined like 6 months after, and it was already completely different from the initial launch in March. So I think this team was super fast launching this platform, especially considering that by the end of last year, we already had 400 products there. And quite honestly, I think it's so ambitious that to have all these integrations working, that in 2 years to have over 400 products, it's cool. It's cool. So final request, join the Deep team, join PMI. We have the IT Hub here. If you are in Poland, we also have an office in Poland, or, well, don't worry about location. Join us. We'll figure it out.
No one else has a question. I was curious because you did made a lot of work, a lot of things to abstract and to try to decrease the cognitive load of setting up these kind of things on the cloud. So, and my question will be around this: did you identify what you should focus on having by looking to the cognitive loads that's so the barrier that would mean for someone to migrate their application to the cloud, or do you use any other condition to make that decision regarding what you should focus in automating on the platform?
Well, I didn't decide anything. Cognitive load on the teams doing the migration. It's big. We didn't really make maybe the best what is the word? Planning. Maybe the word is planning. The best planning to predict what would be the reaction of those teams making the cloud migration.
Question: when you realized that there was a gap on the skill set between for the people who had to do the cloud migration, how did you approach to solve that? What did you do to solve that?
Well, me personally, I can try to speak for everyone, but I personally first realized it when I started seeing support request tickets that were, in my opinion, missing a lot of background, a lot of troubleshooting from the user side. So I think that was the first sign. And how did we approach it? We have a cloud enablement team that's not part of the IP, but it's trying to do a lot of education on clouds. So we have a team dedicated just for that. And I think if the team had the capacity, they would use it all. I can say for sure because it's not my team, but that was the cloud enablement team. They are the ones doing sessions regularly. They are picking up a lot of customer support requests. They are generally trying to present best practices, trying to get them to be followed. A lot of one-on-one work, I believe, there. Yeah, it's a big problem for them as well.
It looks like they have a heavy load of between training, coaching, and support.
Yeah, so sometimes I know they even end up writing codes for our customers of the platform.
Thank you.
I would be interested, how did you come up with the concept for Deep? Did you look what the teams needed first, or did you first develop the concept for that behind it? Because sometimes I think that also put some restrictions on the team, like what can you do in the cloud? And I made the experience that sometimes if you put too many restrictions in whatever way, then people cannot use the full, let's say, advantages of the cloud and things like this. So you're basically also doing a restriction if you offer a platform. And so it would be interesting, how did you come up, what you want to have in your system, in your Deep system, and what was the process behind it to develop that in the sense of the concepts, architecture, and things like that?
Well, that predates me a little bit. But let me see if I can still answer. Where the idea came from, I actually don't know. Maybe Salim will know. Salim works with me. But the idea for the Deep platform, I think some employee or contractor at the time had worked in a similar framework. And or maybe I don't know. I honestly don't know. I wish I knew, actually. But I've got a feeling I heard somewhere, someone that it was actually someone. It was not completely new. It was not a completely new idea. So I think someone suggested it, someone specific that had done this in another place. And then you mentioned what did you ask? What kind of controls we are trying to impose with
Yeah. Also, what kind of control? I mean, you showed some things, but I think there's probably a conflict between, okay, you provide let's say a solution which is guiding you in a certain direction. On the other hand, it's also imposing some restrictions on what you can do. And I think some teams will probably say, okay, yes, it's good, but it's not fitting for our case, or it's blocking what we did before. And I think there's some inherent conflict in it, and it's difficult to solve that at the same time. And that would be interesting. What is your experience with that?
First of all, I'm going to acknowledge that. For example, we support Jenkins for CI/CD. And not all teams are happy to use Jenkins. Some of them would prefer to use GitHub or Actions or GitLab CI. And we, on our platform, with our current offering, are kind of enforcing Jenkins. Like there's no alternative right now. I wish we could have options of CI/CD tools. But at the same time, we have to launch a platform and we have to have a team that can actually do cloud training for teams that don't even have any cloud experience. So we took this compromise. Okay, we are limiting the options. We are maybe forcing the adoption of some tools over the others, taking away that decision from the development team. It sucks. But in PMI, with the current situation, with so many teams not even doing any sort of product development, so far behind in modern practices, yeah, it was a risk.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah, it makes absolutely sense. Yeah, sure. On the other hand, it's or let's say it's probably helping to onboard people and makes things easier. But yeah, it's probably not fitting for everyone. I mean, I'm working in a similar context, and there it's not Jenkins, but it's TeamCity. You know, like people are complaining, okay, we have to use TeamCity, but we use Jenkins, and we want to have Jenkins. So it's always some compromise which you have to do there. And I'm just thinking about, okay, what would be a good option and what is the experience of other teams in this direction? Yeah.
Okay, if you know of a better option, please let me know, because I'm interested.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do not know.
Real good example of, we might not know the answer, but for sure, the good discussions will lead to other options that we can try. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.